When I say an obese person or someone suffering from obesity, what do you think about? What image does that conjure up in your mind? The answer I get to that typically is somebody large, somebody very overweight. Thought process there is I know obesity when I see it because it's somebody really big. Yeah, I understand that, but it's not really what obesity is, believe it or not. That actually causes a very dangerous misconception about the epidemic we have, which is obesity, especially when it comes to a certain sect of individuals that are suffering from obesity but have no way of knowing it, at least by the information they're being given. And what I'm talking about is people that are suffering from sarcopenic obesity, or what is also known as thin fat. Today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm back out on my deck here. It's too beautiful of a day not to be outside, so I'm enjoying sitting here and using this setting. And I probably will continue to use it at least through the fall. I hope you're enjoying it. I like the backdrop a lot. I like being here, of course, as it is my home. And it's a gorgeous day. In fact, after I get done with this, I'm about to head out on the water. Now, we're talking today about a rather interesting subject. And I may have thrown you off a little bit in the introduction, but I'll get to it in a minute because it's, believe it or not, it's a bigger problem than you think, and it's extremely dangerous. I've been wanting to dive into this topic for quite some time. But if you have any questions about this, and this one probably will raise quite a few questions, feel free to contact me. If you have any questions about this, you have ideas about a particular show, please call me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also contact me at my email address, which is Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is our website and also our Facebook page. Hit me up on Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness. I'd love to hear your comments. And for those of you interested in learning more about the LTAD series that we were doing, yes, we're taking a break from it this week, but we will be back at that to finish up that podcast series starting next week. Charlie will be back in town, and we're going to jump on that. But in the middle, I wanted to talk today about sarcopenic obesity. There's several different terms for it. When I was researching this, I found so many that I have to just go with the generic term that people have, you may or may not have heard of. It's called thin fat. What is thin fat? Thin fat, or the sarcopenic obesity, are individuals that are apparently healthy. In fact, not only do they look apparently healthy, many times, this is the dangerous part about it, they are fitness professionals and health professionals, everything from personal trainers to physicians, have told them, you're doing great, everything's fine. But in actuality, they're obese. How do I know that? Well, let's dive into how we look at obesity. If you listen to my podcast 129 called BMI is a Lie, I'm going to dive into that briefly here because you know how much I hate body mass index. It's absurd. Nobody should ever use it. It's not even a measurement. It's a guesstimation. And the problem is we're diagnosing people the wrong way by using this absurd, ridiculous calculation of nothing more than height versus weight. And for those that didn't hear the podcast 129, BMI, body mass index, actually, it originated in 1832 by a gentleman by the name of Adolphe Quetelet, who I believe was French and was a math guy. He was a statistician. He was a astronomer. Numbers and science. Numbers was his thing. He was obsessed with numbers so much, though, that he wanted to know how he could determine how healthy he was. And he wanted to find some numeric way of definitively deciding how in shape he was, or out of shape for that matter. So he came up with this system, this scale, which is basically nothing more than height versus weight. And then he gave a range. It's usually 18 to 25, which if you're in the 18-25 range, you're good. I think over 25 to I think 30, somewhere around there, you're overweight. Anything above that, you're obese. And below 18, you're under normal weight, as they call it. And that was his system, which is horrible. which is absolutely horrible. The only reason it came up with this incredible scientific term of body mass index, like it's supposed to be something significant, it was named that, the Quetelet index was named that in 1970 by the same idiot who came up with the lipid hypothesis. And that, of course, was Angel Keys. Angel Keys named it the body mass index. It did not change. This is the same ridiculous, incorrect system that we've been using to guesstimate people's weight. I mean, seriously, it's no different than, is that building big? I don't know. I'm going to look at it. Yep, looks big to me. No reason to measure it or anything. That's how ridiculous this is and how it has not changed since that time. Pardon me for going off on a tangent. Obviously, you know I cannot stand body mass index, but here's why. For those of you that may be in the know, you may know that when it comes to body mass index or measuring people that are in really, really good shape, typically people that work out, that lift a lot, that do a lot of strength training, not so much in quote-unquote good shape because they do a lot of cardio, but typically individuals that are in fantastic muscular development. And we look at these individuals, and if you're somewhat in the know with BMI, you may know that when you measure those individuals, their BMI, typically their BMI comes out as they're obese. For those of you that may be in the know, yes, you'll understand, yeah, but that's because body mass index doesn't calculate those individuals well. But we don't care about those individuals because they're healthy. They're healthy. They have low body fat percentage. They're in good shape. They lift a lot. They're excellent. Yeah, well, we still use body mass index for everybody else. But yeah, for the healthy people, who cares whether or not we can measure them right? Well, fine. Throw those aside. But here's the real danger, and here's why I hate body mass index so much, is when it comes to measuring somebody that has the right pretty gorgeous weight, the right gravitational pull on their body, which is exactly what weight is and all that weight is, compared to their height. Body mass index says that, hey, you're great, nothing wrong. But these same individuals, not all of them by any means, but many of them can be technically obese. And what is technically obese? Well, if you heard my podcast on obesity, you know that the only definitive answer for obesity is body fat percentage, period, end of story. If you are a male and 25% of your weight is fat, then you're obese, period, end of story. That's it. There's nothing else to look at. If you're a female and 30% of your body weight is fat, that's it. You're obese. That is it. There's nothing else to measure. That is it. And what does it mean? What does it mean? Okay, fine. I'm obese, Garrett. Great. What does that mean? Well, you have the same propensity for health problems that person that you conjure up in your mind as obese, that large, overweight individual. Oh my gosh, that person's at risk for heart disease and diabetes and kidney problems and stroke. Yeah, you have the same tendencies. And you may push it aside. Oh yeah, but I'm thin and that can't be, and I can run and I work out and I exercise. I do cardio every day. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I'm going to show you what I mean. And because of that, many individuals, because of that misunderstanding about what obesity is, we have several individuals, that we have a whole demographic of individuals that are suffering from this, and it's not being diagnosed. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's addressing it. In fact, they're doing things to excuse it away because they don't understand it. And that demographic are our seniors. For those of you that know me, I'm in Personal Edge. Our youngest client is somewhere around 7 years old. We work with them all the way down to 4 years old. We have them all the way up to 95. Our median age is 39. 30% of our clientele is over the age of 65. But the reason I run those numbers is, for those of you that know me, know that one of my favorite demographics and favorite to work with happens to be people that are 65 plus. That's why we have so many 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds that work out with us. It's my favorite demographic to work with. And I'm seeing countless individuals in that demographic that are suffering from this. And they have all the characteristics. It's plain as day. Let me give you an example of how this can actually happen. And let me see if I can bring this a little bit home for you. When we think of people in India, we typically don't think of somebody that's grossly overweight. When we think of people, typically in China, except for maybe sumo wrestlers, we don't think of people as hugely overweight. But do you know the prevalence of diabetes in India and China are some of the highest in the world? Now, mainly because they have more people. There's more people with diabetes in India, and there's more people with diabetes in China than there is in America. I was looking up some numbers on per capita. I think they run a little bit higher than we do per capita. But typically, you don't think of these individuals as being rather large, and they're not. They are not. But their typical diet, their typical activities and what have you as far as true resistance training lead you to this cause, which is sarcopenia, which is the thin obesity. And that's what's happening. That's why they're diabetic. If you heard me talking about the top 10 killers and what the number one killer really is, of the top 10 killers, four of them, their number one risk factor is obesity. That's why I say obesity is the number one killer in the world. Well, if that's a risk factor, number one risk factor for heart disease, it happens to be the number one risk factor for kidney disease, diabetes, also happens to be the number one risk factor for high blood pressure. It happens to be the number one risk factor for high cholesterol. So if you are thin and you have that percentage of body fat that is for a male 25% above, for a female 30% above, you have the tendency, same exact tendency to have all these other conditions. And I'll show you what I mean. Besides using China and India as examples, I'm going to show you more at home and people you may know. Could be yourself. Do you know of anybody that may be apparently healthy? They work out, they exercise, they're thin, they're light, their BMI is really good, but they happen to be on blood pressure medication. They have high blood pressure. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I'll always preface the fact that I'm not a physician, nor do I play one on TV, nor am I giving you medical advice and telling you what you should do as far as your medications are concerned by any means. Most likely, if you were put on blood pressure medication, it's because you have high blood pressure, and I really don't doubt that. But if you've got somebody that is apparently healthy, that they work out on a regular basis, they exercise, they eat quote-unquote right, they're light, their BMI is really good, they just happen to have this anomaly of high blood pressure. What do you think is typically the excuse, not reason, the excuse given for why that person has high blood pressure? By the way, I see this almost daily. Typically what is told to them is, obviously it's genetic. Let me ask you, did your father have high blood pressure? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, he did. Did your mother have high blood pressure? Well, yes, she did. What about other relatives? Yeah, other relatives do. It's in the genes. Now, with all due respect, I'm not, it's way above my pay grade to get into genetics. But something that is rarely, if ever, considered, I would say never, but I don't know that for a fact, but rarely, if ever, considered, is could it possibly be, not that it just happens to be in our scientific makeup, but instead, if my mother had the same lifestyle that I do, if my father had the same lifestyle that I do, and you can say, well, I won't go walking, my mother never went walking. If your mom was busy, was doing housework, what have you, looked like you, had the size like you, but had high blood pressure, I'm telling you, it's possibly a lifestyle thing. I'll never forget one of my clients years ago tried to tell me that his fat was genetic. him being actually very obese, very fat, was genetic. And I asked him, okay, I'll punt. Why? Why do you say that? Well, because my daddy had all his right here too. That's how absurd we can get with the genetic thought process. But he didn't talk about the fact that his daddy also ate the way he does, had the same lifestyle that he does, period. And when we have individuals that are thin and obese, and they're on cholesterol medication, or they're on blood pressure medication, or they have diabetes, many times they're told, well, it's genetics, instead of looking at the lifestyle. But why would a health professional, everything from personal trainer to physician, why would a health professional tell them, you're in great shape, this is just an anomaly? You guessed it. When I measured your BMI, you were perfectly fine. You're somewhere between 18 and 25. I looked at Adolphe Quetelet's 1832 measurement and decided in 2022, using ancient techniques, that you're in good shape. I didn't look at your body fat. Never thought to look at your body fat. So what ends up happening is we have people that are light, and many of these individuals fixated on that weight number. I cannot be over that number. You'd be shocked at how many times we run into that. They're fixated on that number. They're extremely light for their height. People tell them they look great, and don't get me wrong, they're thin. So that's an automatic thought is, that person's thin, therefore they're in great shape. And if their health professional tells them they're in great shape because I measured your BMI, it's very difficult to get these individuals to correct it. Now, how do you correct it? Well, you have sarcopenia in sedentary individuals. Not all. In fact, I just want to bring this up first because the real point I want to bring up is when you have this in people that don't work out, but they don't eat a whole lot, but they may be eating more than they should be being sedentary, but they turn out they're light. They're light and they may be apparently thin. Waist size may be a little bigger, but if you look at them in general, that person's in quote-unquote good shape. Well, they've been sedentary, so they're not working any kind of resistance. They're eating more calories than they should, but not a big amount. If they were just to do some exercise, they could balance out that body composition. But because they don't do strength training, resistance training, then they're not going to balance it out. Therefore, they're going to produce fat, and the fat percentage is going to go higher than the strength percentage. That is not what I see very often. That's not typically what I see. If it is, it's what I see when somebody first starts. And then once they start working out, we cure it like that. That's why I'm not too worried about that. And I don't think that unless you've been living under a rock for the last 10 years, or maybe more, I think everybody knows that you should work out most days of the week. NIH recommends that. Mayo Clinic, I can go on, just like I began with water. How many agencies and what have you, the general public knows that everybody should work out on a regular basis. I sure hope so by now. Your health professional should definitely be telling you that. So that one actually is more easily correctable. Because when somebody is faced with the fact that, you know what, you're actually obese, they're not surprised by it. Well, I don't work out, I don't exercise. The real challenge that I find with people that have thin fat or sarcopenic obesity are those that are working out on a regular basis, are eating quote-unquote healthy. I say quote-unquote healthy. Y'all know how I hate that word. But they eat because they've heard all this misinformation around them about food, and so they're eating quote-unquote healthy. But they're actually obese. And I'll show you how that happens and why we see it in the senior population more than we see it. I think it's far more prevalent in the senior population than it is in just a regular adult population. They had a lady named Deanne DeMarco come speak to my visitors group, and she spoke about generations. And she spoke about what drives each generation. What was very interesting to me about the seniors of today is they have a very strong work ethic. When in doubt, work harder. That is their answer. When in doubt, something's wrong, just work harder. Look at a fitness program then of somebody like, if I've got too much fat, fine, work harder. If I need more strength, fine, work harder. Couple that with what they have heard since 1953 about food, because eating healthy to most people means cut out a lot of stuff and restrict calories. At the end of the day, that's what it means to most people. It's so incorrect. All created by the lie of food, all started by Angel Keys. But the first thing they think of is cut something out. This is what I don't eat. I don't eat this. I don't eat that. I'll avoid that. And I have very little of this. So what happens? Well, if we're cutting out, most likely, first and foremost, we're not getting enough calories. Period. We're not getting enough calories. On top of that, if you're not getting enough calories, it doesn't matter about your protein because it's completely ineffective as far as building muscle. But in most cases, if you're not getting enough calories, you're not getting enough protein. And y'all have heard me say this many times before. The fountain of youth is protein, water, exercise. That is the fountain of youth. With those three things, if you keep those steady, barring any unforeseen disease, you can pretty well live forever. But if you're not taking enough calories, you most likely aren't taking enough protein. Now, it sounds kind of crazy. Well, this person must walk around hungry. No, they don't. They've trained their body that this is all they're going to get. They've developed this pattern, and they don't walk around hungry. They think they eat enough. Would you believe, this is amazing to me, I've seen this happen. Would you believe that somebody that is anorexic does not walk around hungry? That would shock most people, but it's true. They have trained their body to only take in so much. If they finally turn the curve and actually correct what is going on in their mind, it still would take a while for them to eat enough to build back up. Their stomach has shrunk down so small that they literally aren't hungry. It's very hard to make those changes. It takes a while to make those changes. So if you have somebody that has sarcopenia, they are light, they're thin, they're not eating enough calories, even though they are working out. What is their answer to the problem when they have this little bit of a gut? Well, how do they have a gut, Garrett? Easy. If you're working out a lot and you're not taking in quite enough calories, but you're eating, but you're not taking enough calories, your body's not going to build muscle. It's not. Muscle requires energy to maintain. The body has learned you're not going to give me enough energy, which is food. And since you're not going to give me enough energy, anything extra I have, I'm going to create a stockpile over here. I'm going to hoard whatever energy I can. And so it's going to build some fat, and this is the vicious cycle. All of a sudden, this individual who is a hardworking individual, who's dedicated, they come from a generation when in doubt, work. Well, they see this gut, they decide, okay, then I'm going to work harder, and I'm going to restrict more. And all that's going to do is exacerbate the problem. When I've talked to a myriad of individuals that have this condition. It is so hard, almost impossible. It is so hard to convince them that your answer to your problem is actually taking in more. It's shocking to them. And the whole reason I'm doing a podcast on this is because obviously it's stuck in my craw. It's something that really bothers me a lot. But I have not seen studies on this. I don't think anybody's paying any attention to it. I would like to see some studies on it because I think you would find, this is Garrett's opinion, I think you would find a massive population of people that have sarcopenia, and this, ladies and gentlemen, this is what is killing that older generation. It is something that is killing the older generation. It's all this misinformation. How do you deal with that? What's the first step? How do you combat this? How do you find out if you do have this particular condition? Have your body fat measured. That'll tell you whether or not you are, period, end of story. If you can run a 5-minute mile, but you're a female and you have 30% body fat or more, you are obese. Does not matter. You have the same potential for diabetes, for heart disease, for high blood pressure. But have your body fat measured. After that, then sit down with the professional and look at lifestyle. Look at not only your fitness, not only your nutrition, but look at lifestyle. Look at all aspects of your life. What is leading you this way or that way? That's how you get the answer. For a free consult, be more than glad to do that for free. Call me up anytime. Tell me I'm not going to work out with you, but I want an evaluation on that. I'll be more than glad to do it. It is something I want to hang my hat on, is turning this around. So I will be more than glad to do a free consult with you. You can reach me at area code 251-278-3343. Also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, just like Pat Garrett. Garrett at personaledgefitness.com. That's also our website and our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at Team PE. Sarcopenia, thin fat. Folks, it's more dangerous than you think it is. And also results from how complicated we've tried to make fitness and nutrition. It is so much easier. It's the whole reason for the podcast. Dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness. Just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.